Let's deal with an important issue, clearing the DNA testing backlog. It's a key element to speeding up prosecutions. If you can link a rape suspect to the crime via DNA, it can deliver a swift conviction. And while we have been told that progress is being made in DNA processing time and clearing this backlog, they're concerned it's not going quickly enough, and the numbers really are somewhat murky. I'm joined now by Amnesty International South Africa campaigner Sibusiso Khasa. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's deal with the numbers first, because they seem to be a bit of a moving feast, if you will. In April 2021, we were told the backlog was at 210,000, which is an astonishingly high number. You have detailed that we've been given very different numbers, and they seem to be going up, then they're going down. To the best of your understanding, where are we on this DNA backlog?
Good evening, Sally, and good evening to the viewers. As you've already mentioned, yes, the numbers they keep going up and down, and that's the problem for us as Amnesty International, because we are not receiving reliable numbers. If you are looking back at during the State of the Nation address by President Ramaphosa, what he mentioned was that the DNA backlog had been reduced from around 210,000 cases to around 58,000 cases. And that was confirmed during the SONA debate by the police minister when he indicated that it was now under 60,000 cases in terms of the backlog. However, in May, the minister came back to tell us that the cases were now standing around 154,000 cases. And yet, if you look at other reports or information that is coming in through from the Portfolio Committee on Police in Parliament, you find that the figures are as high as around 180,000. And this is a serious problem, because it is indeed denying victims access to justice.
And certainly we know that every day, and it deals mostly with rape, I would imagine, every day, tragically, women are raped in South Africa. And if they have the courage to go and report this crime and undergo a DNA test, of course, that adds another number to the backlog. So we need to be clearing it quicker than the numbers are stacking up. What's your understanding of how they are trying to clear this backlog and what progress they're actually making?
Okay, Sally, I guess perhaps the minister is the best person to answer this kind of questions as to how are they going about dealing with this matter, because there has been lack of transparency, and even if there were attempts to be transparent, but the information is not even reliable, because even previously when we were told about problems that that are in relation to this particular issue, the backlog, it has been issues around contracts, around maintenance, some of the machines being out of order, and also there's been information that suggested that there was some sort of lack of chemicals in terms of testing DNA. And so this, for us, it's a serious problem, because now if you as you correctly mentioned, that we have a lot of these particular cases, whether it's murder or rape, very serious cases, and you might find that there are still people, let's say a serial rapist, for instance, is still out there because they haven't been arrested and convicted, simply because there is lack of progress when it comes to clearing the DNA backlog. This is a serious problem when it comes to dealing with with GBV.
My understanding is that they have brought private health labs on board to help them clear the backlog. What do you know about their efforts that are being made to try and clear the backlog?
Well, Sally, yes, there are efforts that have been made, and yes, there has been information that suggests what you've just mentioned. But however, when it comes to the fact that we are not getting even the right information is the one that is mainly even a concern, because we battle to even understand whether there is progress or not, whether there is no progress, because if you are not getting the right information from the people who are supposed to be providing you with that particular information, in this case the police, and you can't come here and say that we are making progress while the information that you are receiving is not reliable. So that's why, as Amnesty International, we are making these calls to the minister to come to the public and tell us what's the situation, so that we can also have a bit of confidence in him. Because at this particular stage, there seems to be no political will. Because at this particular, we are still trying to find out as to what's really happening at this particular stage. And Yet the minister keeps on talking about the issue of GBV and other, as in the increase in crime rates. But when it comes to dealing with this particular matter, the information is not clear.
Yeah, and as you say, it falls under the police department, and you note that the police minister's on record in March saying, we've given ourselves 18 months to clear the backlog, but the staff at these facilities say they're going to clear it within 6 months. And that 6-month mark came and went on Friday, on the 30th of September. No word on where they're at from the police. Talk to me about what you would like. I mean, one of the suggestions you have is that as we get the quarterly crime stats updates, they need to, on that, also include where they are with the DNA processing backlog.
Yes, Sally, because we've also written to the minister directly, and yet we didn't receive any particular response when it comes to this issue. And you are correct in pointing out that the calls that we are making, one of them is that when they regularly update us, as in quarterly, around the crime stats, we also need to know as to where are we when it comes to the DNA backlog, because this is indeed denying victims access to justice. And if the minister wants the public to sort of trust what he says, he also needs to provide reliable information when it comes to this particular issue. As you correctly pointed out, the deadline was last Friday, the 30th of September, because he said this in March, and yet last week, the only report that came through in one of the radio stations in the country was mentioning that the backlog was around 91,000 or so. That also indicates that you have now several figures. I'm sure it's about 5 figures that I've already mentioned, different figures that are coming in from his office, and yet you can't rely on those figures.
And talk to me about what impact. You've mentioned the real problem, for example, with a serial rapist. If a serial rapist if that DNA isn't processed quickly enough, that person has longer to continue their crimes. But talk to me about the broader impact, also on rape victims' interest, perhaps, to even report a crime if the DNA test kits are not coming back on time.
The problem is this is more like secondary trauma for them, because now they have to go through this particular issue again and again simply because the case is dragging. And also people need to sort of get justice so that they can try and begin the healing process and also be able to continue with their lives, because having to attend a court case now and then is not a sort of an ideal type of a situation when you also have to continue with your life and want to also forget about a traumatic experience like that. So it is a serious problem, and yet if you find that nothing is being done, also this discourages people, victims of rape, as an example, they might be discouraged in terms of going to court to report such cases because they know that nothing will happen.
Yeah. Do you have any understanding of how long generally one waits to get the results of a DNA test, let's say a rape kit DNA? How long does it take to return a result?
Well, previously, some of the information that has been coming through was that at least around 120 days or so, that was some of the information that was released by some of the institutions that are focusing on the same matter. Ideally, it should be active within around 30 days, if I'm not mistaken, or so. But I guess maybe the police can provide us with more details around as to how do we go about, as in what's the standard procedure for all these particular cases.